what I'm going to talk about today is about the very famous Canary in the coal mine. Or the subtitle is How to Keep an Eye on Your SharePoint Search Updates. Because as some of you might know, we don't really have an SLA for any updates to the search index. And a lot of us are creating a lot of solutions which are based on search. And we can't really see anything in the M365 health dashboard about how well the search index is actually performing. So that's what we're going to discuss today. My name is Kasper Larsen, and you can contact me on Twitter using that handle, and you can find me on GitHub as well. And I'm primarily working on the PnP modern search and the PnP script samples repositories. And I'm from Denmark, and I work in Fellowmind, Denmark. So the reason for this initial version is that I had some outages on search, and you can't really see that anywhere. So I had to figure out how to make a early warning system. And this is exactly what I've done here. I just use brute force. So what I do is that I have my SharePoint list, always use SharePoint. That's where I grew up. And the only thing I have is basically a single list item where I update the value. But the only thing I do is basically I have my list item and I update that. And then I have an Azure function, which will trigger, as you just saw there, it triggers every 5 minutes. That's the interval I've decided on in this case. So every 5 minutes, I check that the value I have here matches the one that I have in the search index. If it does, then I'll just update this one. It's just basically a date time ticks. So I'll update that on. If it doesn't match yet, which I don't expect within 5 minutes, that would be exceptional. If it doesn't match, I'll just try again later. And once I do this, I just put that into my logging list. So every 5 minutes, I update this list saying whether if I found the same identical values or not. So it's a pretty simple warning system. And if it exceeds some threshold, it could be like 30 minutes for the item to be picked up and put into the search index, I can issue a warning or put on a red light in my intranet or whatever I want. But now at least I know that the solutions that I have built working on search might have an issue. And I can warn my users that they might not rely that much on what they see right now, but I hope it will be better later on. And I can also raise a service request with Microsoft support, just to let them know that we have an outage right now, sort of like an outage because we don't have an SLA, so at least we have a bad performance right now on the search index. And that might raise awareness so that they might be able to allocate some more resources for it, because the search index is sort of like a priority based. So if somebody on the farm are doing a lot of heavy duty work, you might get throttled, basically meaning that the search index doesn't update that often. The problem is that the farm concept in Office 365 is basically a number of tenants. We don't even know how many tenants are in a farm. It could be thousands. So we don't know who's actually the culprit here, who's actually doing a lot of heavy duty work and slowing us down. So basically, we just have to learn to live with it. So that's why this early warning system might be a good idea. Just put all of this into my repository, which is of course available for download, and you can use it as you please. But as you see, I'm just using basically my SharePoint any SharePoint site, a list for the target of my comparison, where I use search and I get the list item, and then I do just logging into any kind of logging list. And this one's, as I said, in Azure function. Some people might be concerned about the cost of this Azure function. It's hitting this. It's triggered every 5 minutes, so it must be pretty expensive, people might guess. As far as I could tell, and I've been running this for more than half a year now, it cost me about $2 each month. And I would like to spend $2 in order to sleep well and know that if something happens, then I know it first, than before my end users are starting to call me early in the morning. So that's for me, that is important. But all I do is basically down here, I just get my list item, looking at the tick value. I request the same item again using search, compare those two values. And if they're identical, everything is fine. I'll just reset. If it's not fine, I'll log it into to the logging list. And if it exceeds some kind of threshold, I can do something. Something in this case is just that I send an email to myself. But that is completely up to you. And I'll make sure that the link to this repository is in the show notes, sort of. I think that was all for my presentation, so have fun with it.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for sharing that, Kasper. Short and sweet, but fantastic. See the reaction in the chat. There's a lot of people excited about what you've just shared. So thank you very much for coming on and talking about that today.